What's going on, everybody? I wanted to share an issue I was having with Elementor so that if you're having the same issue, you don't go crazy like I was. I had to reach out to my host, which they elevated this problem to tier 3, and then I've also been in communication with Elementor. So I'm not like a huge web developer or anything, but so some of this is, was an experiment in like trying to find the problem here. So for this website, using Elementor to build it, everything's fine, right? I preview this test page and I know the heading's messed up here. That's only because this menu hangs down a bit. But anyways, the form is here. Now, when I originally built the site, I had a hero on each page and I was using the icon widget, either an icon box or an icon list. It didn't matter. But when I would put in a dynamic tag, like page title, and I would publish the page, I'd get a blank page, right? No HTML or no body copy, just a header and a footer. I was like, that's weird. It started happening to every page. And then I would go into my history and I would try to, add I would do work on a page and then I would try to add the old page back and I would publish it and it would still be blank. So it was driving me crazy. So I started digging in with Claude and obviously reaching out to the host and Elementor. Back to Elementor. So when they released that 4.0 version with Atomic Forms, I updated WordPress. I think it's 7.0. I updated Elementor. And that's when it started happening. Now, I wasn't using an atomic form or any atomic elements, but I was using that dynamic tag on every page. So once I replaced the dynamic tag, the pages were still going blank, but that's because there was an issue in the form. I was using a quote, 2 slashes quotes, and it wasn't saving. It was like giving me an error in the JSON because I was using quotes, but you're allowed to use quotes, right? So to solve that problem, I use a single quote. Now, what I learned is, as you can see, I'm not in a real domain. This is like create a website and they give you a fake domain for development. Like I said, I'm not a web developer, so there's probably a better way to build a website, like using a subdomain or something. I'm not going to get into that. I just started building a website and, I'm using the domain that they're providing for now until I pointed to the real domain. So this is like a development partition, I guess. So there's something in Hostinger called the MU plugin, and that handles the preview of this installation. It's not live. So after lots and lots of investigation, they said that once the domain is live with a real domain name and not the preview one, none of those issues will happen. But still, I was building a website and it was frustrating because every time I would work on a web page for a little bit and then I would publish it and try to preview it, it would be blank. And this was happening over and over again, and it was causing all these like weird save states. And I kept having to back this site up, and I started off with clearing the cache, and then going to the plugins here. And I didn't even have any plugins activated except for Elementor. But then I was like deactivating Elementor Pro and just using Elementor, trying all these different weird things. Then I downgraded WordPress and I downgraded to old versions of Elementor, thinking that maybe it was the update. Once Elementor and the host got involved, they were just going in circles, telling me to go to a PHP file and disable it and do that. I would disable the MU plugin, but then I wouldn't be able to preview the website. And they're like, "Oh, that won't happen once you point to the domain." And I was like, "Well, I'm not pointing to the domain yet. I'm just building the site." So I got Cowork involved, and it found the stored JSON, that it was a database field caused by WordPress's WP unslash. It was stripping all the backslashes, and I did use some Claude copying pasting, so it did not like that either. As you can see down here, the text widget had some P class. It had some like HTML in it, but not in a lot of it was just like always on one widget or one icon widget, or there was one heading that had some type of, you could go to the text editor, you could go to the code editor, and in the code editor you can find that extra code, and you would just remove it and it would fix it. But that first problem was the dynamic tags, but you should be able to use dynamic tags on every page. It's very common in websites, but you can't use a dynamic tag in this preview, which Hostinger is aware of it. I don't know if they're gonna make a fix for it, or or you just, if I'm doing it wrong, but whatever the case is, it was frustrating. So I don't want anyone else to get frustrated if they're getting a blank page and they're in a development partition, or they're not pointing to the full domain. It's never happened to me before. So I was thinking, oh, this must be because of the atomic forms, and then it was doing it on the atomic forms too, and I was like, what the heck's going on? And it was all due to the quotes. So once that was resolved, well, I was still fighting it. It was, I still had some copy and paste text. I was like, every page had this. So it wasn't just one page. It was like every page I was testing. I would just build a new page. I would add a form, and boom, it would go blank. I would add a heading and remove the form, and it wouldn't go blank. So it was driving me crazy because I thought it was the form, but it really wasn't the form. It was the quotes. And for my other pages that had a hero image with a dynamic tag, it was that. And it also was affecting doing any type of webhook call. But I think that is probably common because you're not pointing to the real domain, but maybe it's not. I don't know. So I'm just going to wait to test that when the environment's live. So at some point in here with Cowork, it suggested that I build a plugin that prevents WP unslash from corrupting Elementor checkbox radio select. So I guess this is where Cowork really shines. Like, I wouldn't know how to build an app, and it built it in like a minute. So let's see what happens when I activate that. If I'm able to. Okay, so this is where it gets weird. So now it's a blank page, right? And then I would go back to edit. And these are like fully built out pages. I'd go back to edit and it'd be blank every time. So I would go to the history. I'd go to revisions, 7 minutes ago, 8 minutes ago. Let's see if I can just pull up one. Blank. That one's not blank. What's this one? So anyways, I'll just show you on this blank page. Or can I even do that? Yeah, so let's add the icon widget with a dynamic tag and see if putting that plugin fixes the issue. Page title, test page, publish. Yes, see? Cowork. If you're just using Cowork to manage a couple files on your desktop, you're not using it right. But I'm not a developer, so could not have figured that out by myself. And I was scratching my head. At first, I wasn't using Cowork to figure this issue out. I was going into, I was inspecting elements. I was looking at HTML, and I was copy and pasting that into Claude and ChatGPT. And I was clearing the cache, and I was changing, I guess, pre-AI, this is the things you would do if you weren't a developer, but you were in, you'd build websites and stuff. You'd like had a checklist of things to check out and do due diligence with, and nothing was working. Even surprisingly, getting elevated to tier 3 was not giving me any type of result, because I don't know if they just didn't understand that that they understood that I was in this environment because I was giving them access. So also now these companies have an AI on there, and it's helpful, the AI, but I was like talking with the AI for hours, going through all of their checklists, and maybe they're using the AI, but really it wasn't helpful until I got on Cowork. So, if you're having a blank page issue, don't even hesitate to reach out. Like, reach out to me. I just went through it. It was frustrating. Um, and I hope this video was helpful. But it's just something I had to get off my chest because it drove me crazy. I'm even in a marketing group with 20 other marketers. And they're business owners, they work for companies, they're marketing directors, marketing managers. Some of them are software developers. They didn't have dedicated time to break down, but they did go and inspect Element. They checked a couple things out, and they were scratching their heads a bit, and they're like, all right, well, maybe it's the MU plugin. Obviously, after doing so much research, I understand the structure of what they have in the back end, and what things were doing and what things weren't doing. But they were also having me go into SQL. I think that's the database. See, I'm not a developer, so I don't know too much about this stuff. But they were having me go in there and running all these tests to see. Oh no, maybe that was for the webhooks. They were having me run tests to see what I was getting back. Yeah, so I'm getting off track. Webhooks is another thing because the way Elementor handled it before, it's different how they handle it with Atomic, and I don't know which way is better. It's probably, if it gets the result, it doesn't matter which way it does it. But yeah, and I want to switch over to the Atomic elements. It makes sense. I think I need to watch a couple more YouTube videos to see like how to really use the power of it across pages, so you're not going back and like the old way and like having to work on each page individually to get the same result. These will be able to go across pages with the atomic elements. But the form builder, if you're used to the old way, it is, and it seems simpler for some reason because the UI is there. So if you want to do like two forms on the same line, you just hit 50% and you get your first name and your last name. The way it is on Atomic Forms is you have to container everything. So like your labels and your forms are separate. So if you want, your form on the same line, you have to build a container, and then you have to build a container within the container, and then add. It's like 3 steps versus to the old just one click. Maybe it'll change, but what's the benefit of that? I don't know. I mean, I get the benefit of the atomic element, but can't you just make the old form an atomic element, the old form format? But these people know a lot more about web development than I. So maybe there's a reason, maybe there's more control. I guess there is more control over each little part of the site, but a form's a form. And at the end of the day, a form's a form. I'm going to end it on that.